Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast from the WELT studios. Caleb Hatch with you and Justin Kinney joining us from the Kinney family compound in an undisclosed location. Hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb. Yes, Kinney family compound is pretty accurate. So couldn't match up our schedules this week to both be in studio, but looking forward to talking some IndyCar with my cohort.
Yes, and as we record, this is Friday afternoon for us, August 22nd, so getting ready for the Snap-on 250 at Milwaukee. And we had some news, but I think what's more important is it leads to kind of connecting some dots, and that's the fun part, and that's what we're going to probably focus on once we get past the bit of news in terms of silly season stuff. Also had some news on a couple of races for next year, so we'll dive into that as well, and of course preview the Snap-on Milwaukee Mile 250 as well. A lot of cool liveries for this race and the finale at Nashville, so we'll get to that too. But let's start, and no surprise, Marcus Armstrong confirmed with a contract extension for 2026, so he will be with teammate Felix Rosenqvist. Armstrong's been outstanding this year, 9th in the championship, 10 top 10 finishes. We've seen him make the jump. This is not a surprise, but I think this was kind of seen as one of those perhaps best options for Will Power, but I just never saw this seat opening up to begin with.
Right, I agree. When this came out, it felt like a formality and not much news because of how good Marcus Armstrong has been this season, as you mentioned, where he's at in the standings and continuity, right? Anytime you can have continuity, it's a good thing. I think Marcus Armstrong's been very good. Only one finish worse than 17th, or 18th, at Indianapolis. And since Indianapolis, only one finish outside of the top 9, and that was the 14th at Toronto. So he has really put it on, particularly in the second half of the season, and continues to develop. 20th his first year, and of course didn't do the ovals. 14th his full season. By all accounts, without the charter system, probably would still be at Ganassi, but the next best thing at Meyer Shank, and has really done well. Of course, the podium at Iowa, too, being a highlight as well. So not many available seats to begin with, we feel, in this silly season. Never felt like this one was going to open anyway. So definitely a door closed, but to you and I, probably a door that wasn't really open in our minds anyway.
And Dale Coyne said it a while back, I think, to Racer.com, saying, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty boring silly season. Like, there won't be a lot of movement. And so far that's panning out for 2026. In fact, it sounds like, speaking of Coyne and Rinus VeeKay, it sounds like both sides want to stick together, and Coyne is confident telling Racer, I think it will, in terms of the plan to continue with Rinus VeeKay. And he said, we just saw Armstrong staying with Meyer Shank. He's staying put. I think, our two drivers long before Halloween. I feel like this is breaking news in and of itself. 2 Coyne drivers confirmed long before Halloween. What in the world is happening here?
That can't possibly be real, right? Something has to happen, but it would be great for Coyne to bring back both drivers. Jacob Abel, he's been a rookie. We've talked about his struggles. If the money's there, if it's being supplied, giving him a year 2 makes sense, because of being a rookie, and see if he can make strides, but also financially, if the financials are there, if he's bringing a big check, it absolutely makes sense. So we'll see. Anything can happen, but yeah, that's for considering how long it took to get Rinus VeeKay in the seat this past year. It'd be wild to go through an off season knowing exactly who was going to be in the 2 Coyne seats. I don't know what we'd talk about in the off season if those 2
right?
seats are set.
Could you imagine if the grid is set by Halloween? I mean,
it'd be a long off season.
Yes.
What the heck we're going to talk about?
For sure. So those are kind of the latest things. And then there was this in a story with Marshall Pruitt, Racer.com, talking about what Foyt is doing, and obviously they want to continue the headline, Foyt working to carry momentum into 2026. And yeah, it's just the gist of it is talking about, hey, we've had two really good cars. We want to continue that for next year. But I thought what was interesting is reading between the lines in terms of what this means with David Malukas and his engineer. Well, it sounds like they are for sure moving over to Penske. Pruitt says Malukas, with his Penske ties, is widely expected to get the nod to replace Will Power in number 12 Chevy, and Schnabel, James Schnabel, who's the engineer, is tipped to go with him. Remember, he came over from Penske to engineer that entry. So they'll move away from the number 4. Obviously, Foyt would have an empty seat. They wouldn't have budget as well because Penske is essentially freighting the budget for Malukas' car this year, and that would be a big change for AJ Foyt Racing. So another kind of nugget on, it seems like Power's gone, and I felt that he was out based on his comments after the Portland win, just because of the past tense in his quotes. I get that might be reading way too much into it, but it just seems like there's momentum, and despite him getting a win late in the season, this was probably already predetermined before the season started.
It's we talked about this at length the last couple weeks, and just what it would mean for Penske to make this move, if it does indeed make this move. And is it desperation? Is it overly confident in David Malukas? Is it something monetary? Monetary. We've heard rumblings of a business deal between HMD and Penske Corp that maybe could or is impacting this decision. Who knows? And I think Marshall Pruitt has done a really good job being diplomatic in talking about these two drivers, Will Power and David Malukas, because the mailbag has been full of questions and comments, particularly the last couple of weeks regarding this. It's not that David Malukas, it won't be ready at some point to be a Penske driver. It's just he may not be ready yet. And to take out the one driver that actually has performed for Penske this year is for his seat would be pretty amazing. So we'll see. And I think if that domino falls, then you look at who fills that seat. I mean, Dennis Hauger is the guy that we feel definitely deserves a full-time seat in IndyCar. The problem is he doesn't bring much money. So if Foyt needs a paying driver, like David Malukas was in the sense that he was sponsored by Penske, is Dennis Hauger a possibility at Penske? I don't know. The money would have to come from somewhere.
I think you look at Hauger, and Pruitt also had a write-up on him. Look, he basically said Hauger is going to bring the scholarship money by winning the title, assuming he wraps it up this weekend at Milwaukee. Kyle Collette is close, but I think not close enough to pull it off in the final two races. Have to be a drastic change in the results. But with Hauger, he brings his talent, he brings the scholarship money, maybe a little bit of sponsorship. There's not a lot, but is that enough to get by? Because to me, you want to see him on the grid, and it would be an indictment of we call it the ladder system. I know it's not necessarily set up that way anymore, but we'll just refer to it that way. That would not be a good look, right? We kind of had the same with Linus Lundqvist a couple years ago. He's trying to get back into IndyCar as well, so there's another name to keep an eye on as we look at 2026 drivers. Hauger's got to find a place on the grid, and could he be a candidate for that coin second seat if the VK entry is funded well? Maybe if Abel doesn't have the funding to continue. Who knows? Either way, though, there are a lot of balls in the air that are depending on Will Power. Once again, that's what this all comes down to.
It does, and maybe Penske has already made its decision. Maybe it hasn't. How much is riding on these final two races, these final two ovals? Who knows? But I just have a feeling we won't know for sure until after the season on what's going on with that seat.
For sure. So let's take a look at the 2026 grid and kind of see where we're at. We know that Ferrucci should be back at Foyt. Andretti is set. McLaren is set, allegedly. Chip Ganassi Racing is set. Ed Carpenter Racing, we expect to be set as well. Prima, same deal. Meyer Shank. Penske, it depends on power. The open seats that we expect to see, obviously the 12 at Penske, we expect to see a change and Malukas swap in there. Rahal, we expect at least the 30 car to be available. I would expect Graham Rahal and Louis Foster to continue. And then Juncos. Do they stick with Stingray Robb and Connor Daly? I mean, Stingray's obviously bringing a big check. The results, he's had a couple high moments, but for the most part, it's been a struggle. And then Connor Daly, who has had some good success, especially on ovals, but again, comes down to funding. So those are kind of the seats we expect. And then Coyne. We expect VK back, and I guess it wouldn't shock me with the way Dale Coyne's talking that we could see Jacob Abel back as well. Not a lot of seats. So I guess let's look at what we predict will happen. We have one seat at Foyt. We'll assume Malukas swaps in at Penske. We'll have one seat at Rahal, two at Juncos, and I guess we'll say Coyne stays the same. So who are you thinking for these seats?
Well, I think two names in particular come to my mind, and one is Hauger, and one is Linus Lundqvist. We've heard rumblings about Linus Lundqvist and potentially having a ride next year, working out a ride. I feel like right now, if I had to pick for the Rahal seat, I'd go Lundqvist. I don't know about you. I don't know if it makes sense to bring Hauger in, considering you already have a rookie who will be a second-year driver. I get it with Louis Foster, but I just feel like you would want somebody with a little bit more experience coming in with that seat. So that's why I go Lundqvist.
So Lundqvist to Rahal, that's interesting. I know a lot of people are saying, willpower to Rahal, but I don't see it.
I'm sticking with what we said last week. I think if Rahal's done at Penske, Will Power's done at Penske, I think Will Power's done as a full-time driver.
Yeah, I like the Lundqvist pick for Rahal. I hadn't really thought of that on the radar there. I'm going to go, let's see, Juncos, I'm going to say they take Hauger as one of their seats. And then
I can see that.
And then whoever comes up with, whether it's Stingray Robb or Connor Daly, based on the financials that are brought, I mean, that's what I expect to happen.
Yeah, I think those two drivers both are in full-time seats next year in some capacity. I mean, you hope for Dennis Hauger because he's produced, but as recently as Linus Lundqvist, it didn't work out. So Linus Lundqvist, though, was able to eventually, obviously, get that full-time ride, an opportunity at Chip Ganassi the year after, or 2 years after his championship in Indy Lights. So eventually it came around, so it may not be immediate, but I feel like with what Hauger has shown is, and plus his age too. I mean, we're not talking about a 19-year-old kid here with Dennis Hauger. I mean, he's in his mid-20s, isn't he? So for Dennis Hauger, I feel like he has the maturity and the experience to deserve a seat. He's younger than I thought. He's 22, but definitely has the experience, of course, with F3 and F2.
And then at Foyt, I'm going to go with another rookie. I'm going to say they pick up Kyle Collette.
You think so?
I think so.
Kyle Collette goes. If Malukas moves on to Penske, I mean, I don't know what the budget is that Kyle Collette brings, if any. I don't know if that's going to be a seat that will go to the highest bidder with that money gone. You'd like to think Foyt could be in a position to pay a driver for that 4 seat, but I think that's unrealistic right now unless something crazy happens. So it all depends on who has budget. Could it be a guy from overseas that has a budget? If Collette has the money, they go for him. But I feel like maybe it wouldn't necessarily go to the most deserving as opposed to who can bring the most money. I mean, if Stingray Robb is out, if it's Daly in, Stingray Robb out, I mean, that money probably would be welcomed at Foyt. So,
do you think they'd take him back?
It all depends on how desperate they are for the money and to run that seat. If Robb brings a lot of money and they have to have a paying driver in that seat, it wouldn't surprise me at this point.
And then I guess it comes down to the other Junco seat. I really think it's a toss-up between Stingray and Connor, and then that other one they'll put in Hauger. So it just comes down to financials. Anyone that we're missing, any extreme wild card thing going to happen? Because it just doesn't feel like something crazy is going to happen beyond whatever happens between Power and Malukas.
Nothing on the horizon. I mean, of course, anything can happen in silly season. You never know. I'm sure there's drivers that we're not thinking of that are overseas that could bring a budget and all of a sudden be well on the radar. But I think a lot of teams are going to be set and feel comfortable heading into next season, even if Will Power is not retained. I just don't see a lot of movement. It's just Malukas over there, and then Foyt fills with somebody. So we'll see. Hopefully it gets dragged out well into the off season because we need something to talk about.
Maybe we'll have a Stefano Coletti level surprise.
Yeah, let's go.
For newer IndyCar fans, look that name up. That's a blast from 2015 or so.
Gosh, has it been 10 years since
I think
Stefano
so.
Coletti was racing?
I think so. And it was just that 1 year, and it was a crash fest. It was not great. Did not go well for him.
Right? Stefano Coletti? Wasn't he from Monaco?
Yes, he is a Monegasque.
Monegasque. See, you just wanted to be able to say that.
Yes, it's fun to say. How can you not have fun saying Monegasque? It's a fun thing to say.
It was 2015 for KV.
He did have an 8th in the Indy 500. Or sorry, in the Indy GP, my bad.
Yeah, I think it was the GP, wasn't it?
That was his only top 10 finish all year, was 12th at Fontana. The infamous, or I don't know, I guess not infamous, but the infamous in terms of because IndyCar never raced there again, and now the track's gone, but the 2015 Fontana race as well, he was 12th in that one, and that's about it in terms of results in his lone IndyCar season.
Stefano Coletti, man, it's a blast from the past.
So that's a look at the silly season. We lead with that because we at least had a driver confirmed, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to get exciting beyond Will Power and David Malukas in terms of Power out, Malukas in at that 12 car. That seems to be the only big thing, and we thought, maybe all of silly season is just kind of hinging on this deal going down, and then there'll be a lot of craziness. But no, it seems like every other team is, for the most part, staying put.
As of right now, you never know why it's called silly season. Is because silly things can happen, and who knows, maybe there'll be more chaos than we expect. But between the paddock and team owner, it's not there right now. But we'll see if that holds through the final 2 races of the season and into the off season.
What also is not there right now is IndyCar confirming a race in Mexico City in 2026, and a new story out.
We wait.
Yes, we wait. Motorsport.com, Luis Ramirez penning an article for them, and interesting details because it conflicts what IndyCar was looking at a few weeks ago in terms of having the race not in the spring, but later on after the World Cup in late July or so. But now it seems like the focus is back on a spring date. So obviously St. Pete is the season opener. Week off, you go to Arlington, and then you have that gap before Long Beach in mid-April. And Ramirez reporting it's precisely in this window that IndyCar aims to bring the series to Mexico. Negotiations are advanced. They plan to race at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, but the schedule for next season, he says, is expected in the coming days. And this article came out a couple days ago on August 20th, so just 2 days ago. So basically, the way this is trending, it's gone back to being that spring date because I think they couldn't find an oval event maybe to slot in there. and now IndyCar is trying to get this deal done. Now, the other detail that I find interesting is who would lead the group. Grupo Rentable, CIE Okesa, who are promoters of the F1 Mexican Grand Prix, and then when NASCAR came to the track this year, could also enter the picture as well. They hold concession rights to the track. A collaboration would be the first for the two companies and would reduce the financial risk compared with NASCAR's attempt to race in Mexico. Now, Grupo Rentable, that's the billboard company that's advertising space in Mexico. They've organized races under the name Speedfest as well. They have connections with Michel Jourdain Jr., one of your favorites. And again,
yes, sir.
Trying to get this to happen, but again, in terms of ticket sales, Ramirez says it probably wouldn't have the same issues with ticket sales as NASCAR faced thanks to the presence of Pato Award. So let's hope that Pato, who is not true, and it's more like Pato draws 200,000 plus to Mexico City.
That would be the hope, and almost to me the expectation, at least for a six-figure crowd. You know, it was nice to have this story. It's just another story that says, IndyCar and Mexico's very close, blah, blah, blah. And until it's announced, I just still have my doubts, don't you?
I do as well. I mean, this was positive to see an article from someone else. Nathan Brown's done a great job covering this story and just the track stories in terms of the schedule for next year, but it's just nice to see someone else put something out there in terms of what's happening with Mexico City. Different perspective with the date change, and it seems to be going back with the billboard company, which I assume is the same that's owned by Ricardo Escado. But yeah, there's just, he's in charge. He is the general director, or director general is what it's labeled, according to his LinkedIn. So that's the same guy, and we thought there were issues, especially after his son lost his light seat. But yes, I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire, but not in the good way. It just seems like the more this gets dragged out, it's not happening. But IndyCar absolutely needs it to happen.
It does, and then there was a cryptic response by Marshall Pruitt in the mailbag this week at Racer.com that you and I both don't understand what this means, but somebody asked straight up about the concerns that the Mexico City race may not happen. Marshall Pruitt responded, quote, "Yes, the timing of the Fox buy-in has, I'm told, created a big rethink on the schedule," end quote. What does that mean? I can't imagine that it means trying to find new venues for 2026 this late in the game. Does it mean, when the races are on the schedule? Does it mean alternate days outside of Sunday? Could there be a Saturday race? Could there be? I don't know what that means. There was no context to what Marshall Pruitt said. And so that's just another kind of wrench thrown into things on, what does, quote, a big rethink on the schedule even mean?
Yeah, does that mean Fox doesn't want Mexico City in terms of market? Does that mean they can't make the spring work because of NASCAR and something else schedule-wise?
Do they want to match up NASCAR and IndyCar a little bit closer, especially with the races that are on Fox with NASCAR? I mean, we're seeing trucks next year at St. Pete, and I don't know.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure what that means, so that's another thing that we'll have to interpret. But yes, that's the latest on Mexico City. It just, again, on one hand, it's another story, but on the other, it's another story where it's not confirmed. And that's my concern at this point with where we're at. Again, as we've said, just get it done.
Until it's confirmed, you have your doubts, and even sometimes after it's confirmed, you still have your doubts.
Yeah, see the Boston Grand Prix. And then the other the other track story, Nathan Brown, IndyStar.com, talking about Toronto, and it sounds like it will not be held at Exhibition Place. No worries. It will still be held in Toronto proper, just a bit further on. This would be in at an old airport. So they've had to make a shift due to the World Cup. So another airport circuit could join the schedule. The soccer stadium, which hosts an MLS club, will also be one of the host cities and host stadiums for the World Cup. So that's why the track build and everything would be delayed, and they'd have to change the date. They can't have it the typical range, in late July. It may have to be moved a month later, but then you have an issue with another big festival in Canada. So the plan now is that, yes, Toronto will return. In fact, the quotes that Brown got said that IndyCar and Green Savoree Toronto are committed to the market. They sound positive for 2026, but now the belief is it'll be at the now defunct Downsview Airport. It was an airbase during World War II, recently owned and operated by Bombardier Aerospace, sold in 2018 to a development company. They closed airport operations. It's a single runway facility, and they've actually turned it into really kind of its own exhibition place, if you will, with some of the events they have there. They've hosted community events on the airstrip. They have a park area, a temporary concert venue called Rogers Stadium. It's had some big concerts, Coldplay, Oasis, which is their reunion, Chris Brown, and so on. That venue can host 50,000 fans. It's the largest purpose-built music venue in Toronto. So this has kind of become, and they also have hosted the country's Papal visits in 1984 and 2002, as well as the Rolling Stones benefit concert in 2003. So it's hosted big events. It's the training grounds for Toronto FC, ironically, again, the club I was talking about, who has their stadium at Exhibition Place at BMO Field, and that's part of the reason why they can't do this. But all in all, airport circuit, sign me up. I get that this would probably be a one-year thing, but I'm all for it. This sounds fun to me.
Well, it's better than saying, well, we just have to take a year off from the Toronto race, right? Finding an alternative. There's some interesting possibilities with this venue because of the reasons you mentioned. It's not just some disbanded airstrip that they'd have to come in and completely revamp. There's already some entertainment elements of it, and I can't think of a better partner for a race weekend than just having the Pope come in and have an IndyCar race. You mentioned hosted the Pope on the visits to Canada, 2 of them, in fact. So nothing would help draw people more than having the Pope at an IndyCar race. I mean, he's an American. It just makes sense.
And the other thing is, it's still in the city. Yes, it's not downtown. It's on the far north side, but there's mass transit stations there. It's very accessible. I mean, this is already an entertainment complex, as I mentioned. So this looks like a lot of fun. It reminds me of, of course, Edmonton and that airport circuit, which was really fun. I know everyone's going to say Cleveland, of course. That would be great if IndyCar went back there, but who knows? Maybe, just maybe, this goes so well and they can expand and have more, bigger crowds, sell more tickets, and maybe this becomes a long-term thing. Look, I love the street circuit, but it seems to be limited by events and construction almost every few years. It kind of feels like they're lucky to fit the event in there, and it's a good event, and it's had a good run there. But is this maybe something that is not just a one-off, but becomes the long-term solution for IndyCar in Toronto?
Potentially. I still like Exhibition Place just because
I do too.
It's smack dab in the middle of the city and everything. I'd prefer to stay at Exhibition Place as long as possible. But if this is at some point, if there's just too much development that it can't happen no longer at Exhibition Place, then if this is a viable alternative and you stay in Toronto, it would be a huge win. So it officially closed as an airport in April 2024, and there's already been development of, it's called YZD, a nod to the former airport code of the airport, a $30 billion transformation of the 370-acre site will unfold over the next 30 years, includes the creation of 7 new neighborhoods of residential space, commercial and cultural spaces, parks, green spaces as well. So is this going to be turned into eventually a residential neighborhood?
Seems like
that
it.
makes sense for IndyCar. So we'll see.
Either way, this is exciting that there's a plan. It never felt like Toronto was going to happen at Exhibition Place. The timelines were just too tight in terms of track build and competing between the World Cup and then the Canadian National Exhibition, which is that big end of summer event, kind of like a giant state fair, if you will, is what Nathan Brown says it's akin to. So either way, they found a temporary solution. Does not seem like a long-term solution based on the development you just mentioned there coming. But this is positive, and you look at the schedule. I mean, getting Toronto sorted out, obviously whatever happens with Mexico City, but all in all, things seem to be in motion for this schedule to perhaps come out Nashville weekend.
It sounds like a good alternative, and looking forward to, at least for a year, keeping this race going at an alternative location. For
sure. All right, so there's the latest between the schedule and silly season and where we stand. And with that, let's preview what's coming up this weekend. And IndyCar back at the Milwaukee Mile for the Snap-on 250. And a lot of changes. First off, in the spotter guide, Joseph Newgarden with that Snap-on livery with a little bit of chrome. Did you see that? That is clean.
I did.
Very clean.
Yes.
Sancio for Scott McLaughlin. David Malukas back in the Clariance Technologies car. Other livery changes, you have Santino Ferrucci in the Phoenix Investments car. WWEX Group for Graham Rahal. Kyle Kirkwood back in the Siemens car. Marcus Ericsson with Browning Chapman as the primary sponsor for this weekend and next. EvTech for Devlin DeFrancesco. Jacob Abel, Miller Lite car. Couldn't make the Indy 500 with Miller High Life, but he will likely qualify for this race and have a Miller Lite celebrating 50 years. There's a nod to Bob Uecker, which I believe, are they honoring him? Is that this weekend as well? I can't remember. I know it's coming up soon, but very cool livery with the retro Miller Lite livery. It reminds me of like Max Pappas in the kart years about 25 years ago. So that looks good. And then Marcus Armstrong, fresh off that extension. This is the race that St. Thomas University of Florida is sponsoring, and they had a lot of cool programs and tie-ins with this, so you can look up some of the details on that. AM/PM back with Connor Daly as well. So a lot of livery changes. Cars look really good. It's nice to see new sponsors as we close out the last couple of races of the season. And with that, taking a look at the schedule. Now, they changed IndyCar practice. It was going to be early in the morning before lights, which made 0 sense, but they've adjusted. All times Eastern on Fox Networks, IndyCar Radio, IndyCar Live, and Sirius XM as well for the coverage. But 11 a.m. Eastern on FS1 is practice 1 for IndyCar. Qualifying at 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And then they're doing low line and final practice at 4:30 Eastern on FS2 on Saturday. Race coverage on Sunday starts at 2 Eastern on Fox. And you look at the green flag time. I know if you're not a pre-race guy like me, it will be 2:20 Eastern, 1:20 Central. 250 laps.
All right.
Again, for IndyCar. With that, our 3 key stats, courtesy of Chad 200 for this race. And I would expect Penske to have a good weekend. I don't know. That's just me, but we'll take a look at his stats and what he was able to pull for this race. And as I'm trying to scroll and find it here, 3 key stats. Newgarden finished top 5 in the last 2 starts with Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing. Led 109 laps, finished 26th and 27th, and his 2 starts here with Team Penske, 4 laps led. Scott Dixon, 1 win, 190 laps led, 5.2 average finish. last 6 starting positions at Milwaukee, 21st, 11th, 11th, 10th, 17th, 17th. It's fascinating. And Scott McLaughlin, a win, a pole, 2 front row starts, led 232 laps in 2 starts.
Very
Who you like?
limited for a lot of people in the field.
Yeah.
In terms of experience at Milwaukee. But I'm feeling like you, short oval, you defer to Penske even this year. And so that's where my head is, and seeing, who wins it. And I think it's going to be a Penske driver.
I agree. What Penske driver are you going with?
I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden to win this race.
As am I.
Well, all the anticipation is gone because we picked the same driver again.
Yes. Well, it was the same. Was it the same last race too? Did we both?
It was, although nothing would complicate things more at Penske than having Will Power win again.
Right? No joke.
We should root for that.
For sure. All right, so that's our preview of Milwaukee. If you agree or disagree with our picks or anything, our takes on silly season, let us know. We'd love for you to interact with us. You can find us on social media on Twitter/X. The handle is IndyCar Podcast. Same on Instagram. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, rants, whatever you have. Support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Mailbag time and a few things to get to, especially stuff from last week. And we start with Lynn. A couple of takes. He said, Justin, I'm in Northern California, so I know about the Athletics. There is a floor and salary cap. One year the A's had to give every player a bonus to meet the minimum salary cap requirements. And he said, yes, they play in West Sacramento in a AAA park half full. Yeah, I knew about that part. I didn't know there was a minimum salary cap, but that is not surprising. And then Lynn also said,
poor A's fan.
Yeah, right. Said, hey, Mr. Rant, Josh, I believe, sent the email. Justin, 100% correct on Rossi. Rossi had only 2 good years, 2018 and 19, where he finished 2nd and 3rd. Ever since, he's been 9th or 10th for 5 years and now 16th. Justin is like Dennis Green, and he knows who Rossi is. Love that. NFL reference for our international fans. And also, Lynn, with this, Justin, your take on Lundgaard as a championship contender is horrible. He's horrible on ovals. 12th place finish on ovals for 2025. Career average of 16th. Basically a very good road racer. So does not agree. But I think Lundgaard's making the step. He showed enough progress for me at the Indy 500 this year for me to buy in that he could make that jump. Look, we said the same thing about Palou. He was winning titles and hadn't won an oval race. And then he goes out and wins the Indy 500. So
yeah, 6th
figured it out
this year for Iowa. I mean, the thing is, there aren't very many ovals on the schedule. So if you can get some decent finishes at ovals and maybe a win, it doesn't cripple you if you're just average at ovals. And I think Lundgaard is very much improving every season all around, but particularly his oval acumen. And like you mentioned, that 7th place at Indianapolis, I think, really, really not only showed us, but maybe showed Christian Lundgaard that, hey, I can do this. I'm getting the hang of this, and I think he's only going to continue to improve. Yes, yeah,
that's what I needed to see, and now I become a believer. And look, either way, barring just a complete meltdown these final 2 races, he's, for the first time, it's going to be the best finish by a non-Pato Award McLaren car in the championship by a mile. So I think that's something else to keep in mind. First year with the team closing in on perhaps a 3rd place points finish. Also, Snarky Moose, S2000_Moose. If Will Power was or is considering retirement, why did he hire Fernando as in Fernando Alonso and Oriol Servia as his agents? And why does Oriol in particular seem to still be working on his behalf? I mean, they're trying to get him.
Point.
It's a good point. They're trying to get him something good because he hasn't typically, I think, used an agent. So, look, he's trying something different. It is fair. I think but you could argue he's using them as leverage to stay at Penske. I don't think he's using them to get just any old ride.
Right. It's a good point. I mean, they could be the ones that are helping him or on his behalf negotiating with Penske. As we mentioned last week, he's going to be 45 when the season starts next year at St. Pete. I don't know. Everything that he's gone through on and off track with his wife Liz, especially recently, with the health issues. I don't know. What if his offer from Penske is do some sports car work and have a 500 ride? Isn't that better than racing in the midfield for a guy that's won, championships and an Indy 500 and not even competing for poles if you're at a certain team? So I just don't know if Will Power has the desire to be that, because we know how intense he is, we know how competitive he is, and we know how not being competitive and losing, especially early in throughout much of his career, just wore him down mentally. I just don't know if that's something he wants to go through again, quite honestly.
Also, this from Snarky Moose about the Portland broadcast. If you have access to FS1, you have access to the Fox Sports app. Entire race was available there, as is every IndyCar session. So there you go. The more you know.
I had no idea. I guess I should know that.
And then
but I don't want to jump through hoops. I'm already spoiled over less than one full season with IndyCar, not having to mess with stream.
Yes, it is nice. And then this, Adam Stern had this post. This was last week, but of course after we recorded. Well, some have wondered if Team Trackhouse will be a candidate for Ram Trucks and Stellantis, which is entering the Truck Series. The team may decide to wait for Honda, because then it could align with the same OEM in NASCAR and MotoGP. Obviously, that raised a lot of eyebrows. Mallard _73, does this mean Honda leaves for NASCAR? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're just adding something else. That's what I like to hope. And then James Balk said, not good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not ready to go there, because we're talking trucks. We're not talking Cup in this particular scenario.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but a team waiting for an OEM that potentially could come in, it's just not enough for me to start panicking. But with each passing week, we still wait about regarding Honda, don't we? That we do.
And from one thing we're waiting on to another, where will Will Power race full-time next year? I posted this poll. 41.5% of you picked Rahal, 30.2% said Penske, 18.9% said retire from full-time, 9.4% said Foyt. A few replies here. OBX Jody said Power to Arrow McLaren, Siegel and his money to Foyt or Juncos, Malukas to Penske. Again, not convinced that McLaren's lineup is indeed set for 2026. Jeff Cerneski said, well, I think he will land in IndyCar. He mentioned on Speed Street Pod with Connor Daly, there may be some connections that could take him to WEC. I don't think he lands at Foyt without some sponsor help from Penske and Chevy. And then Lynn _IndyCar said it's Rahal or 500 only. So that's kind of where the pulse is for Will Power if he's not back at Penske next year, which a lot of people don't think he will be. And then Lynn had this stat on Alex Blow's greatness this year. Through Portland, Alex has scored a total of 626 points through 15 events. An average, this will blow you away, 41.73. Again, you get 40 points for second place at each race. Isn't that just absurd?
It's wild.
I thought that was a great,
wild. I mean,
great poll.
Going back to Will Power real quick. Yeah, I guess the most, if you would say, attractive potential open seat is that Rahal seat. That team's best current standing in the entrance standings is 15th with the 15 car. Is that what Will Power wants to do to close out his career? Is be mid-pack at best over the course of the season? I don't think so.
Remember, Elio Castroneves
he's a racer.
Stayed with Penske running sports cars in an Indy 500 only ride for a handful of years. Yes, he did eventually then leave and go to Shank and then had, 1 or 2 years full time. But maybe that's the route for Powers. You stay with Penske and you're an extra car for Indy, and that's it, because I still would argue that's a better gig doing that and other racing options if he wants to keep racing, whether it's sports cars or WEC or whatever, then a seat that is certainly not been good at Indianapolis at a minimum. Yes, they've been fast on road courses, but at Indianapolis, they've not had the speed.
Right.
Unless you're Takuma Sato.
Not competing for a championship. Yeah. Takuma is a different breed. I think Will Power, you could consider a different breed at Indianapolis, just with his pedigree and win. So that to me would be the most attractive option, would be you race in sports cars and you have a 500 seat, because you're not guaranteed to make the Indianapolis 500 if you're at Rahal.
That is true. And then the Truck Series back with IndyCar, you mentioned it, but racing at St. Pete, which is going to be interesting. Obviously, Fox can cross-promote with that, but a couple of replies. Hunter's Way 67, Steve said, I bet this leads to IndyCar at Phoenix or Richmond with Cup. And Poach Shevchenko said, I think that will be a crowd pleaser for sure. Crowd was already very good this year. It's interesting. There's a curiosity factor for this, and you talk about the Cup schedule, which came out. Watkins Glen was inexplicably moved from August to May, where I don't even think the weather's going to be warm enough. They have it for May 10th.
Yeah, a little weird.
So there's IndyCar's option. If they want to race Northeast, Watkins Glen's going to be available in August. That would be an interesting thing. Obviously, some other things, Richmond, another option. I would be shocked if Phoenix happens for IndyCar, but Richmond seems like a possibility as well.
Well, I think what we've heard with the quote-unquote rethink of the schedule, and then this development with trucks and St. Pete, are these early signs that Fox is going to be more involved and push a little bit more of a partnership through Fox with NASCAR and IndyCar? How much power does Fox have? Probably considerable amount, with the amount it's paying Cup and NASCAR for the rights, to maybe match these series up a little bit more than the two series really want, especially NASCAR. But could this be like, hey, we're giving you a lot of money. We want you to do this, in terms of maybe potentially partnering up at a couple places, especially early in the season when NASCAR is on Fox?
Yeah, having the same TV partner.
Looking too much into it, or if this could be the start of something.
I think we'll see something beyond just the trucks at St. Pete. I think we'll see maybe one other thing. I'm hopeful. We'll see, though. I don't know. Fox has incentive, obviously, as you mentioned, to make something happen.
Yeah. I have no problem. Let's use Phoenix as an example. I have no problem with IndyCar being, one of the so-called, lead ups to the race on Saturday. That's fine. I don't care. You're going to have more people in the seats than if you go to Phoenix by yourself. We already saw that being attempted, and look how that went. If you're partnering up with NASCAR and you're at Phoenix on a Saturday, that's fine. Now, we know that NASCAR is a little hesitant to partner with IndyCar on ovals because they're considerably faster than Cup on ovals. But then again, it comes back to, if Fox pushes it and says, hey, we're giving you billions of dollars for your media rights, the least you can do is this. I feel like that's advantage IndyCar if they can partner up with NASCAR, even for just one weekend at an oval that they're not already racing at.
IndyCar at least has a seat at the table where they did not before, and I think that's a positive step beyond just IMS on the road course, which to me, yeah, it was exciting in the fact that it happened, but it was kind of a nothing burger in terms of building some momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a look at the mailbag. Time for news and notes. And the Alex Palou legal battle still ongoing. Nathan Brown with a story, and we're not going to get into all the details.
Oh, darn.
I'm not going to bore you with all the legalese, but Nathan Brown did have an interesting tidbit in this story talking about Christian Lundgaard's contract. Had the salaries for Lundgaard's deal with Aaron McLaren, the money Siegel's family paid to lane him a ride, the team in 2024 as well. So there are some tidbits that are interesting. I mean, think how many drivers are involved with this. You have the current 3 drivers. You have Alex Palou. You have David Malukas. You have Alexander Rossi. In terms of all the different names that are going to be involved in terms of the salary deals with this. So it's pretty crazy. But McLaren was going to pay Palou $9 million over 3 years, which is, as Brown puts it, a bargain, and that's absolutely true. Lundgaard signed a 3-year deal with Aaron McLaren through 2027 for a total of $6.5 million. Annual payments of $200,000 for the 24 offseason, $1.55 million for this year, $2 million in 26, $2.75 million in 2027. And then they paid $25,000 to David Malukas, $50,000 to Callum Ilott, who did a couple of races, $87,500 to Teo Porcher as well. And then they were paid $1.25 million by Siegel for the rights to remain to run the remaining 10 races in the 6-car last year. So there you go.
Throwing a lot of money out there, aren't they?
Yes, but that money is nothing to a company like McLaren. Keep that in mind.
Correct.
So a lot more details on the sponsorship valuation package and everything. NTT obviously not thrilled because they lost below who they're sponsoring with Ganassi, and then we're going to go over and there's more details. IndyStar.com is where you can find the full story, but I thought the contract stuff was perhaps the most interesting element of the deal. Other news,
definitely.
The streaming wars continue. Fox 1 is out as of yesterday. And then ESPN also put out their plan, and there will be a bundle available in October with Fox and ESPN. But the deal now, there's I believe a 7-day free trial, but $19.99 per month with Fox One, or $199.99 per year. Or you can do Fox One and plus Fox Nation, which is $24.99 a month, or $239.88 per year for the plans. Obviously, IndyCar will be streamed on there, along with a lot of other sports. Keep that in mind, but I'm fine with YouTube TV, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm set with YouTube TV. Hopefully, we don't need to be chasing IndyCar around anytime soon.
Also, Dave Portnoy, founder of Barstool Sports, who's also going to be a part of Big Noon Kickoff on Fox for their college football coverage, will ride in the fastest seat in sports for the IndyCar finale at Nashville Superspeedway. That's a big name. I get that Barstool is polarizing, but that is a big name indeed. Nolan Allar, the number 11 entry, will miss the race at Milwaukee Mile. I thought that was interesting due to family and school obligations. Remember, these are young drivers, so I just thought that was interesting. Bobby Portis, if you're a Pacers fan, you probably don't like this guy, but he will be at the race this weekend. So if you're a Pacers fan, maybe bring your Pacers gear. I just think that's a pretty funny tie-in, but Bobby Portis, obviously beloved Milwaukee Bucks player by Bucks fans. Joseph Newgarden is sharing some news that he is introducing the Newgarden Family Foundation, working with different charities, including Serious Fun Camps, Wags and Walks Nashville, who he's worked with in the past. They're going to host Karting for a Cause with SCCA or SCC Nashville and Nashville Super Speedway coming up Thursday of next week ahead of the Music City GP. He has details on his social media with the link for tickets and more on that, but pretty cool that he's taken that step. And I said the ESPN Fox deal, October 2nd is the release date, $39.99 per month. So that is pretty competitive when you consider that includes pretty much everything. You tack on Paramount Plus, you tack on Peacock, and you're good. Or You could just do cable or, Fubo or Hulu Live TV or YouTube TV in the U.S.
Plenty of options, but we don't have to chase, at least right now, knock on wood, any of our IndyCar content.
No. And one other note, in IndyCar land, the All-American Rejects playing on the pre-race stage for Nashville weekend, Sunday, August 31st at noon. Now, they played Carb Day, right, before the Indy 500, and they're part of the festivities. Obviously, I've gotten hooked on IndyCar to take part in this, so that's pretty cool. And finally, IndyCar adjacent, but Cadillac F1, closing in on their two drivers, and it's the two names that have been thrown out there consistently, Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, set to likely be confirmed as soon as next weekend when F1 resumes from the summer break at the Dutch GP.
Yeah, I think you looked at that and you thought maybe a veteran and a rookie for Cadillac F1 in year one, but the fact that everybody is effectively hitting reset with the formula heading into next year, I think that gives Cadillac F1 the opportunity to hit the ground running in a lot of ways. And the best way to ensure that, at least with your drivers, is to have two experienced drivers. And it also shows that Cadillac F1, not that we had any doubts, is not going to be hesitant to throw money around because those are two proven veterans that are cost a lot of money.
Yes, I think that's a key point there. They have the funds, and they want two veterans because they want to develop the car and they want to get a good spot. I would assume that both guys are at least on 2-year deals, assuming they get confirmed. But it'll be exciting to see. I get it's an American team, and it didn't work out in terms of an American driver. At least that's what we think for next season, but it at least will be something different, and I'll be excited to see that next year. So that is it for news and notes. Let's get to tweets of the week, and we have two to get to. First off, last week we forgot to commemorate the 14th anniversary of the Will Power Double Bird from New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
Ooh.
So someone replied to Indy 44 with he had posted basically a video of the unveiling of the Double Bird picture. Essentially, had some fun with it. But Rooftop Ray replied and said, "I know a little about that shot. A passionate driver, and I was lucky enough to keep following him. Then a replay op forgot to tell the producer it might not be good with the network censors, and so he has an autographed picture of that Double Bird, and Will Power signing it, and." It says, you cost me $50,000, or it's either $50,000 or $30,000. I can't quite tell in the writing, but I thought that was pretty funny. And then
That's
also Colton Herta, who is experimenting with a YouTube channel. And if you watch any of the videos, he talks and then you get rickrolled. And the Andretti Indy account to admin replied and just said, "You're done." Shut it down. No more fun on YouTube for Colton. So that's a look at our tweets of the week. Anything that we missed, Justin?
No, I think we, for a relatively quiet week, we made it through, found enough content, and heading into a race weekend here at Milwaukee.
So, speaking of Milwaukee, there is one thing that we missed. What's different about Milwaukee this year, apparently Penske Corp not involved. It's all Wisconsin State Fairgrounds running this event. So
yeah, that info was dropped by Marshall Pruitt in the mailbag, and kind of cool to see that they're taking now the lead on promotions and everything. Yes, last year, of course, it was Penske Corp. So we'll see how it goes this time around. All indications are it should be another solid crowd, and hopefully the weather cooperates and we don't have any monsoon rains like Milwaukee had a couple weeks ago. Doesn't sound like we're going to have that. So looking forward to what hopefully will be a well-attended weekend at Milwaukee for IndyCar's return.
Yeah, weather looks perfect. Low to mid-70s Saturday and Sunday.
Excellent.
In Milwaukee. Other notes from the Racer.com mailbag. The new cars look different to the DW12 and handsome, as Marshall put it. Also, Lights drivers all sponsor family funded. No teams pay drivers to run their cars. That's not really a surprise. Miles Rowe likely back in Lights next year. And Pruitt floated the idea of a Cincinnati street race. Look, just race at Kentucky Speedway.
I don't know if there's any interest. I think it was more marshaled, in the Midwest, and Cincinnati's usually a pretty high rated city in terms of ratings for IndyCar. I think that would be pretty cool around the complex with Great American Ballpark and Paycor Stadium for the Bengals. So it's a nice setup down there close to the river. Put us in charge of it. We'll get started on it.
Again, just go back to Kentucky Speedway, which I did see Adam Stern had a note that people, like influencers, broke in and there were like people detained because essentially they were trespassing. It is private property, still a operational facility, but it's not really an abandoned racetrack. I get that's kind of the perception, but it is still owned. It is still operational. They just don't have racing at the moment. All right, time for our random split era driver of the week. Bring us home.
All right, so we're going to 2001 in the IRL. We're going to Hemmelgarn Racing, and we're going with Chris Meninga.
Who?
You remember Chris Meninga? No,
I do not.
Chris Meninga, a native of Austin, Texas. He started in the Barber Dodge Pro Series in the mid-'90s. He then moved to Indy Lights for 1999 and 2000, both with Conquest Racing, a high finish for a season of 9th, and somehow a 9th-place finish in 2000 in Indy Lights turned into a ride in 2001. Now, it was only for 3 races towards the end of the season for Hemmelgarn. It was at Gateway, Chicago, and Texas. Best finish of 16th at Chicagoland, which, note, will be back on the schedule in NASCAR next year. So, side note, could that go well? And maybe IndyCar land back there in a couple of years. Who knows? But that 2001 season, just 3 and done. And he dropped out of 2 of the races before the finish, hence the 2 19th place finishes, before coming in 16th at Chicagoland. In 2005, he competed in a single Toyota Atlantics race at Road America. Interestingly, he was later a spotter for Conquest Racing in the Champ Car Series before, of course, that went defunct right around the merger. So he lives in Des Moines, Iowa, and that's it. 3 races and done in IRL in 2001. Chris Meninga, this week's random split era driver of the week.
Now, Buddy Lazier did all the races in the 91 car, and then they had Stan Waddles run at Phoenix, Homestead, and Atlanta to open the season.
Start the season.
And then in the 4th race, Steve Knapp ran the Indy 500, and then they didn't have another driver until Meninga closed it out. But Knapp, another, I think, former random splitter driver of the week, right?
Yeah, Hemmelgarn that year had quite a few random splitter drivers of the week.
All right, we will be back next week to recap the Snap-on 250 at the Milwaukee Mile. Plus, we'll chat with Don Cusick. Big announcement coming next week with Don Cusick and Cusick Motorsports. We'll chat with him as well. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Batch. Thanks for joining us on another edition of New Track Record Podcast.